What's up, brothers and sisters? Today on the podcast, we got Sister Minna Long out of Ironworkers Local 29. I know that's a little brief intro, but I'm going to let her introduce herself. With that being said, Minna, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? And then, the old question I always ask everybody, how'd you find yourself getting into the Ironworkers?
Hey, Minna Long here out of Ironworkers Local 29, book number 1548219. Thank you for having me, Paul. It's been a while since I've been on here, and super excited to talk to you again. And let's see. So, Cliff Notes version is I was actually in prison when I found out what a union was. Actually, I had no idea what it was prior to that. But in the women's prison in Washington, there's a pre-apprenticeship, state registered with both Oregon and Washington. And it's called Trades-Related Apprenticeship Coaching, or TRAC for short. And towards the tail end of my 8-year sentence, I decided to do that program because I was coming home to be a single mom. And I was just trying to take advantage of every opportunity to better myself and make sure that I had like the means to give my kids a great life despite my past. Because when you have a record like mine, you can't just go get any job, unfortunately. And so, I just wanted as many tools as I could get. And once I got into the program, I very quickly realized that it was amazing. I was getting hands-on skills in 4 different crafts at the time. It's a multi-craft program, kind of like UPACT, the one we've started in Oregon. And I fell in love with ironwork instantly. And so at the end of the 16 weeks, I TA'd for the program for a little while until my release date. And I joined Ironworkers Local 29 as soon as I was released.
Hell yeah. And so like going through that pre-apprenticeship, Minna, you found yourself getting into the actual apprenticeship a little bit easier, right? Because, my belief, you can usually when you go through a pre-apprenticeship, they put you at the top of the list, correct?
I mean, I would say more or less. I think it probably depends on if there's like an articulation agreement.
Yeah.
Between a specific JATC and a state registered apprenticeship. I should know the answer to that question. I'm not sure if there's an articulation agreement. I don't know that I had direct entry, but maybe preferred entry.
Yeah, I think it's more that. I think that's what I was trying to say, man.
Yeah.
Preferred entry, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I don't necessarily believe in myself getting preferred treatment anywhere. I like to earn everything that I get. And it didn't happen right away. I had to wait a while. I actually worked for a non-union construction company. And because, I suppose I could have gotten any, well, maybe not any, because hence my record, but I probably could have gotten a number of, minimum wage jobs in the interim while I was waiting. But I wanted to keep my hands on construction, pulling a tape measure, using my body. And so I went on Indeed, and a small, like mom and pop, literally renovation company hired me. And so I worked for them for a few short months until I got my phone call. And I remember calling Leah like every week, and I remember irritating her. And I still have my card that says my number on the application pile. Like they give you, I don't know if TME still does that, but I still have it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. So you got the call saying you're going to work. What was your first job? What was it like for you?
So I went to work for R2M2. I was doing rebar, and I loved it. The bulk of the pre-apprenticeship well, it's a mirror image of our pre-apprenticeship. Like if you were to do the week-long or maybe the month-long, you pack the rebar, you learn how to use a torch, you learn knots, you learn basic safety. I did like a little bit of welding, learned how to roll bolts, really, really basic stuff. And so, but the bulk of it, it was heavy on the rebar side because we learned how to tie a mat. We had actual tie stations, just like we have at the hall. And I would learn, I would tie the entire rack with saddles, the entire rack with snaps. And then of course the rebar carry, like I mentioned, we would practice partner carrying with longer bars, bundles of longer bars. And he would, when we got in trouble, he would make us do that for a really long time.
Hell yeah.
Just out there packing.
Oh, yeah.
It was awesome. So I remember, I was so nervous. My first job was the Portland building. It was a retrofit. And I was so nervous because Like I wasn't thinking, about being a woman or anything. That kind of thing came later. I was just like, they're gonna call me a punk. Like I am like went in there with my dukes up, but also scared. And asked some guy with a white hat where the ironworkers at, and he told me where to go. And the first question someone asked me, I don't even remember who it was can you tie? And I said yes. And they put me on an entire column by myself, and I just sat there and tied. Like I didn't really know what we'd actually done column tying in the pre-apprenticeship, but every column is different. I mean, you have your typical ones, but every column is different depending on what the job is, right? And so I had a little bit of familiarity, which was amazing. But I just sat there and I was like looking at, there were horses like all down. So everybody was tying their own column. So I was just watching to see what they were doing. Yeah. And then I just followed suit. I just copied what they were doing.
Oh yeah. And like, just speaking of that, Minna, like obviously you said that you were tying before you went out. So your preparation is key to a lot of things, right? So that just showed preparation puts you ahead of most people, most apprentices that go out there, you know what I mean? Not knowing what to expect.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the only thing on that job is that everything was double wire. It was shotcrete.
Yeah.
And so everything, I want to say 100% was at least double wire. And so that wasn't something I was used to. So my hands got a little.
You felt that in the morning.
Oh yeah. I was like, how do I do that?
Yeah, exactly.
And so, yeah.
No, that's awesome, man. And so like through your apprenticeship, obviously you started out in rods. When did you find, how long before you were able to dip your toes in the water of structural?
I mean, it was almost perfect timing. I got like all my hours. It was almost to the dot. So I want to say around a year, maybe between 9 months and a year. And I got some overtime, so I did get my hours. And there was kind of a lull for the company, and I got sat for whatever it was at the time, where you can put your name on the list if you've sat for, what was it, 48 hours? It used to be.
Yeah,
I can't remember.
Yeah.
And
after 3 days, you can get on the list.
Yeah. And so I just put my name on the list at the hall, because my foreman I remember him telling me when I first started, if that ever happens, put your name on the list. And so I did, and I got a call. And I got a call for an out of town company. It was supposed to be a 2-week call. It ended up being longer. And it was just me and Sean O'Connor. And it was a really cool job. It was really fun. And then I ended up getting recruited by AIG from that job, I believe. And then I just stayed with them for, I don't know, a couple years. So that was kind of it was structural and miscellaneous, kind of both, because it wasn't like, instant raising gang gig or anything like that. It was kind of some ninner nanner things, monorail system, some as builds, some stairs, different things, and some structural mixed in there. That's how I got my feet wet with that right after rebar.
Yeah. And so like, with that being said, man, like obviously doing, we do a lot of scopes of work, you know what I mean? But doing rebar and structural, you know what I mean? There's a good and bad with both. Through your apprenticeship, I mean, what was, I guess, one of the things that I've been wanting to ask people is, we can say all the good things about our apprenticeship, but what's one thing that you wish you could have done differently through your apprenticeship? Not to put you on the spot.
Man, that's a good one. There are times where I wish I'd stuck up for myself.
Yeah.
Some things I experienced where I wish I'd stuck up for myself.
And that goes in general with everybody, man, right? Yeah. You know what I mean? Just because you're an apprentice doesn't mean you don't have a say in anything.
No, yeah. And so that's the thing that really pops out in my mind. Like I'm sitting here, I'm like, would I have worked harder? No, I busted my ass. I don't remember one person working harder than me when I was in the work. You know what I mean? Not to sound like I have an ego, because I actually really don't.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I worked really, really hard. And there are just times where I wish I'd stuck up for myself or said something, because situations that weren't right. That's what comes to mind right now.
Yeah.
Really. Yeah.
And so like you said, I mean that, if you're an apprentice listening to this, just know that you have a say, and
Yeah.
who gives a shit what any journeyman tells you? It's bullshit. But with that being said, man, like you went through the 4-year apprenticeship, right? And then you decided to take a shot at going to the apprenticeship competition. Can you kind of tell us how that came about?
Oh man, yeah. So I had just barely journeyed out. I journeyed out at like between 3.5 and 4 years. I got like, there was a year where I had so much overtime. It was insane. So I actually was a little tiny bit prior to 4 years. And I think that helped have an opportunity to do competition. And I, I'll just say this bluntly. I got a lot of pressure from folks to try out for competition. And I was like, oh no, like I hate the spotlight. I know that me being on podcasts and me doing some of the things that I do might make folks think that that's not true. I hate the spotlight. I would rather do things behind the scenes. And so I was not attracted to the fact that like, oh, being in the spotlight and, it just, that felt very uncomfortable to me. And also, I feel like I'm average. I don't feel like I'm better at the next person. I literally have blinders on when I'm working. I don't compete with other people. I don't compare myself to other people. That's a piece of advice for anybody listening. And so there were a lot of things that made me uncomfortable about the idea. It just didn't feel like a good fit for me. And then fast forward to me being convinced to go and try out, ended up working out. I came in first place and got to represent at the international competition. So it worked out. I'm glad I did it.
Denver, right, Minna?
What was that?
You went to the one in Denver, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And can you tell us a little bit about that experience, man? I mean, a lot of us obviously aren't able to go to that, but can you tell us what it's like to actually be a competitor in the apprenticeship competition?
I think it's different for everyone because I remember talking to mentors at the hall who have done competition, Mike, Jason, Vernon, and asking about their experiences and kind of trying to live vicariously through them and how it felt to go through that process of training and all of that. And I kind of came to the conclusion that it's different for everyone because like Jason was like, it's just like you're at work. And I could not get past that. No, this is not like work. This is a different kind of pressure. It was so nerve wracking. But once I was there, once you're in, there's no turning back, right?
Yeah.
You just go for it. And so when I got there, the camaraderie was amazing. I remember checking into my hotel after getting there, and I mean, the whole foyer's full of ironworkers from all over Canada, everywhere, and so I just started talking to people. And I instantly realized that the camaraderie was on a completely different level. Like it was amazing. It felt really good to be there and to meet all those folks who were all there for the same reason. And even though we were all competing against each other, there was no vibe that was the case.
Yeah.
It was like just brotherhood, sisterhood all the way. And that was my take from it. And it was just a really good feeling the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. And like you said, man, that's a lot of us don't get that opportunity, and just to go to say that you went competed is just enough in itself. You know what I mean? Like that's something to be proud of. And with that being said, obviously you made it through the apprenticeship, and then you transitioned into being a journeyman iron worker. Can you kind of talk about what's that like? Because obviously apprentices are on a different out of work list. They have different rules. They have different things, right? So what was it like to finally get your journeyman card and say, hey, I'm a journeyman iron worker. I can go do whatever I want.
Nerve wracking. The status feels good. Having that card in your hand feels really good because it's something that you earned and you worked really hard for. And that's how I felt having it in my hand. That's how I felt the night of the journeyman test. It just felt so good. It was like, the next accomplishment, right?
Yep.
And now I will mention, yes, you can do whatever you want. You can boom out. You can drag up if you are not happy or you want to go somewhere else. But how I look at it as a single mom, I'm the only parent my kids have, and they're my entire world. So I don't have that luxury. I have the luxury. I don't use the luxury because, my kids are depending on me. So anytime I got that, what do we call it? Red ass. I don't ever use that term, but you know what I mean? I would bite my tongue. I would hold it in and I would really assess the situation, because just because you're not happy doesn't mean there's a guarantee, next job for you. You never know. And so I'm, sacrifice for my kids, even if I'm not 100% happy on a job. So, I just kind of carried on and just stayed working and just continued to work hard. I still work like an apprentice. I'm picking up trash. I'm trying to organize. I'm trying to stay busy. My mentality didn't change. I do appreciate the fact that I am able to kind of be more of a mentor for apprentices. That's one of my favorite things in the entire world. I love getting phone calls from apprentices that I just need advice or just need to talk, because that was given to me. And to be able to give that back to folks feels really good. And that's probably my favorite part about being a journey worker is I get to help other people. And I kind of have that status that allows me to do that.
Yeah. And that's what it's all about, man, is teaching the next generation, right? The people that are learning like you learned, and not being like holding back and being scared to teach somebody, right? So that's the whole point of this, is teaching the next generation so they know what they can expect, right? You know what I mean? The good and the bad, because there are both.
Yep.
And, Minna, I've worked around you. I've seen you quite a bit, you know what I mean? And, lately, just in these last couple of years, you did quite a bit of tower cranes. You know what I mean? You were a tower crane hand. And you don't see many women doing that. And, you know what I mean? That's something you should be proud of. So how did you find yourself getting into the tower crane game? And, what's it like to be a tower hand?
Well, one, it's just super fun. It's so much fun. It's tower crane jobs in general, dismantle, erection, assembly, disassembly. They're unique because I don't want this to get taken the wrong way. The stakes are high in a different way. I have never worked with a bad crew. There's never a bad apple on those crews. They're the best of the best. And that they have your back, whether you're on air crew or ground crew. It's just like such a cohesive unit. And that's one of the things that I really, really love about those jobs. And all those companies have treated me so well. My brothers have treated me so well. That's what I love about those jobs. And of course the work, there's nothing like being 300 feet in the air, beating pins or wrestling iron. I remember there was one time, I know I'm going off into the weeds here, but there was this one time, because I want to fall back to, not a lot of women do it. A lot of anybody can do it. It doesn't matter. Right. And I know you know that. To have to continuously prove yourself harder just because you're a female, or because you have certain parts on your body, is just the most asinine thing in the world. I remember working with Chad. I don't remember. I was trying to think about this the other day. I don't remember which company, but Chad Teeney was my partner on a corner of a tower section. And he was on the outside, I was on the inside, and he needed 2 hands to swing the beater. So I was holding the B&O and the pin, and he was like, you got this? And I was like, yeah. And in my head, I'm like, I hope so. Because like, you're like, don't drop, in your head all the time is don't drop something, don't drop something, don't drop something. And I caught both. And that pin came out. It came out. It didn't just kindly come out. It came out. Yeah. I caught both like it was nothing. So anybody who's listening to this, don't doubt women. You make yourself look dumb.
Yeah.
So, no, I'm tiny. Yeah. So to be able to do that with my hands aren't even that big. So those pins are big. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And he wasn't, tapping it nicely.
Yeah.
So
No, because it's not like that, man. And when you're on a tower crane, like you said, it's the best of the best. And if you drop something, that could mean somebody's going to be killed below you. You drop one of the pins, I don't know, like 95 millimeter pin. You know what I mean? That's a big pin, right? You know what I mean?
yeah.
And so, like, being on a tower myself, I've had my butthole puckered a few times, thinking like, man, just like what you said, I know I'm not going to drop it, but my head is like, man, I'm going to try my damnedest. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, like, it's just that mentality of the guys and the gals you're working with are thinking the exact same thing, and they have your back like that, because you have to be close doing that type of work.
Yeah, absolutely.
And absolutely. So, like what was the best part that you liked? Beating pins is cool. I always like the dismantle part of it.
It's cool.
Yeah.
Man, I fell in love with the Manitowoc 16,000. Oh, I love that crane, and being out in the middle of nowhere where you just find a place to pee and squat, and more animals than people, and you're building this amazing crane or taking it apart. That's one of my favorites. But every tower job has been amazing. Every crane job, every heavy moving job. There's a couple particular crane jobs that stick out in my head.
What was your favorite job, man? Doing towers.
So doing towers.
What you were gonna say? I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh no, you're fine. Yeah, every tower. The tower jobs specifically are blending together because they're all, like, all the LeBares, Comanza, they're all so similar, and so they're all just kind of blending together in my head as far as what, when, where, and who. But I got to do my first climber install a few weeks ago in Seattle, and that was pretty fun. Pretty fun. I wasn't there for the climb. They ended up sending me to a different job. And that crane actually had a climber on it, but we were just moving the entire crane to a different spot on site. And so didn't really do any climber action. But two jobs that really stick out in my head were demoing a 1942 Whirly crane. Yeah. And what was cool about that day, it was right next to the 405 bridge, and one of the entire days, Ness Campbell was right across the river. And so we were bird dogging each other from across the river and watching each other work. It was so fun. We were working with Kiewit's 400-ton barge crane. And we didn't really, you go in with a plan, but it's a 1942 crane. We had to cut open, me and Bryce had to cut open the butt to, like, see what was inside, see what kind of counterweight was going on. We didn't know. So it was so cool. It was so smooth. I got a couple souvenirs, and it was a really good time. And then when I worked for Mammut, that was a cool job. Job. Wasn't a crane job, but it was a heavy rigging. We were working with the SPMTs, Mammut was at the airport, so I'm sure a lot of folks have seen some of the footage of those SPMTs at work. And so we got to work with those, and that was badass.
Yeah, that would be badass. You know what I mean?
Those things. Yeah. Oh, those things are so badass. I remember, so I was welding some dogs on the top of the support cans on top of the SPMTs. I have some pictures. Yeah. And I was welding, and I was making a pass, hood down, and I felt the engine start, so subtle, but I felt it start, and then I felt us moving. And so when I put my hood up, when I was done, it didn't stop me. It didn't jolt me, nothing. Yeah. When I put my hood up, I was like 20 feet in a different spot. And I was like, these things, I mean, they have to be smooth, right? Yeah. They have to be smooth. They're carrying literally tons of weight. And so they can't make, like, sudden moves like that. They got to be smooth. And I was so impressed. Yeah. Just in love with all those things. So.
Yeah. And it's, and like, that's the part, like, going back to the dismantling of the Whirly crane, Minna, the thing is as iron workers, that's how we're taught how to figure out what center of gravity is, and to try to figure out where pick points are, right? Because you don't always know exactly what the weight is, right? You kind of have to use hand in hand with the operator. How much weight do I have on the hook? You know what I mean? And it just kind of like, you have to figure those things out. And that's why go back to our training on how to figure out how to pick certain things.
Yep. Definitely over rigged for that one.
Yeah, 100%. Because you can imagine what would happen if something would have sprung or, stored energy or whatever, you know what I mean? Shit goes crazy so fast.
Yep. And we used hydraulic chain hoists too. So that in case we needed to change lengths, change anything in the air or on the spot, like as we were coming up on some of the loads. And it was so cool.
Yeah, but that's the fun part of it. Like, it's just figuring out. That's what I always loved about doing that. Just having to figure out your rigging and pick points and all that. That's the fun part.
We used shackles that were bigger than me.
Yeah, exactly.
We got
to use a forklift to move your shackle around.
We had to use rigging for our rigging.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean?
Fun. Yeah.
And that's what's awesome about Ironworkers. We work with big shit all day long, and there's nothing like it. And so, like, with that being said, Minna, like, up to this point, outside of tower cranes, what's been your favorite job? What's been your favorite scope of work? Outside of tower cranes.
Man, I love it all. I miss rebar. I've been asked to come back a few times, and I've just been busy elsewhere. I haven't had a need to, break down and go somewhere else. And but I miss rebar. I love doing stairs and handrail. I don't necessarily 24/7 have the patience for handrail, especially when you get the 5,000 piece puzzles, or what turns into a 5,000 piece puzzle.
Yeah.
I really love the miscellaneous jobs I've done some miscellaneous jobs in mills where you have to use a lot of bull rigging, and maybe someone didn't field measure anything, and you have to do some refabbing. And as frustrating as those can be, you really have to think and work together and come up with plans. And I find those to be like the most fun and the most satisfying. And then, I have a raising gang brain. I love raising gang. I didn't get, I got some experience in that in a few different places. So like raising gang and mentality, the reason I say that is because that's just one of the things that came most naturally to me: the rigging, the planning, the coordination. What does everybody need to succeed? What do we need to set up, bolt up for success, which I really believe in, because they need to come behind us and succeed as well, because it's a big picture situation. So
what you're saying is, don't be a connector that puts the bolts the wrong way, doesn't put a washer on, or
if you can help it.
Yeah. But
if you can help it, or at least, I don't know if I want to go.
Yeah, it's all good. But
everybody knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
okay,
exactly. You don't have to say it. Yeah,
you know what I'm talking about. I just really believe in that. I really believe in really working together. But anyway, the raising gang and just kind of the planning. And then what they do, and then the kind of what flows after that is just came really, really naturally to me. We all have our strengths, our weaknesses. We all want to be well-rounded ironworkers, but there are those certain things that we are good at, and it came naturally to us. And that was one of the things that came naturally to me. It just really clicked for me. Yeah. But I mean, I really love everything we do. I enjoyed tin cans, did those for a while. I was the person cracking jokes while we were rolling out fuzzy because insulation is not fun. It's disgusting. But man, I just love being an ironworker. It's not really anything.
It's good work, right? It keeps you busy. Especially being out here in the Northwest, we do quite a bit of tin cans. You know what I mean? We don't get the high rises like everybody else. You know what I mean? But we have the big stuff like tower cranes. We got, a lot of mill work. Like you said, I've done a lot of shutdowns, and, that's where I've made a lot of money is in the mills, right? Because you have to be an all around iron worker to work in those types of places, because like you said, you have no idea what you're going to see or what's going to happen.
Exactly.
But yeah, Minna, so like, through your career, obviously you've always been a hand. You've always been somebody that is responsible, and you're somebody you can count on. nowadays, you've kind of transitioned into another aspect of labor, right? And so, can you tell us a little bit what you're doing now as far as with labor?
Yeah. So I got an opportunity got a job offer to work for the Washington State Building and Construction Trades Council. How I explain it to our folks here, typically, because a lot of folks don't really know what that is. A lot of people think that I've just left the union. Nope, I'm a dues paying member. I actually still take tower crane calls on the weekends. I haven't gone anywhere. Same package, same everything. But how I explain it typically is, most folks know who Robert Camarillo is. He is the head of the Oregon State Building Trades Council. I work for his counterpart in Washington. And, we have Local 29 has jurisdiction in Washington. And so we're an affiliate to the Washington Building Trades, just like we are to the Oregon Building Trades. And so essentially I work for us. I work for us and I work for anybody who's an affiliate. And I get to be an advocate. And it's the best job I could imagine outside of just being an iron worker.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So really, really fortunate for that opportunity and to be able to kind of, this might sound corny, but I consider myself a servant leader. And my heart literally beats for advocating for folks, creating more success stories, for folks having opportunity, for fighting for us. Yeah.
So like with that, Minna, can you kind of tell us like what you're working on or what we can expect from what you do in the future?
Well, I kind of do a little bit of everything right now. We just came out of a legislative session, and so was working on we have priority bills for the building trades, and so kind of just helping with that. And I'm new to this space, so I am an apprentice. I consider myself an apprentice, and I'm learning a lot. And so that was my first session. So kind of got my feet wet and learned how the building trades come together and work on priority bills. Like we have for Washington State, House Bill 2266, sanitary protections bill. It's going to go to rulemaking, but what it is it's going to provide accommodations for women on construction job sites that women have in other workspaces, places to lactate for their children when they're breastfeeding.
Yep.
And discreetly use menstrual products. It's a simple ask, and so we're kind of getting up to speed with the times because other employers do offer those things. And so
100%.
Yeah,
100%.
So legislation, rulemaking, I do a lot of advocating for the apprenticeship and looking for grants for folks. And I have been I'm on a lot of different committees and advisory boards that kind of help me be a better advocate. So I'm on the WISHA advisory committee, construction advisory committee, just a number of them. And so I'm able to kind of get a closer look at things that different agencies are working on and how all of that intersects with the building trades. Yeah.
So just speaking of what you're doing, Minna, kind of something that comes to mind is involvement, right? How important is it for union members and just everything that goes along to be involved and understand how their local works, how their union works, and how building trades work?
How important is it?
Yeah.
That's super important. It's super important. I know folks, there are some folks that are happy with just getting their paycheck and, who's not, right? I think that it takes I think it takes a certain mentality and a certain drive, a certain passion that anybody can be capable of. It's not a matter of being capable. It's really a matter of just having the desire and the passion to try to carry on the things that were given to me. And, a lot of times I sit and reflect on the fact that people literally died for me to have the conditions that I have. And I don't want anybody to ever lose those when I'm dead and gone. When I'm dead and gone and not even a thought in the world, I want shit to be as it is or better,
Yep.
you know?
Yep.
And so that's kind of, for me, that's why it's important for me. And I have this sickness where I just love helping people and I love being an advocate. And so I call it a sickness because it's what I live for. It's my kids and my desire to help folks. Those are the two driving forces I have in my life. But yeah, that's why it's important, because people did die for the rights that we have and the conditions that we have. And you know, if you're interested in learning how the politics work, learning legislation, like policy, the legal system, you know, negotiations, contracts, you know, union versus non-union, all of that intersects with your job, with your day-to-day job. You go into work, it all intersects. And so it's important to have an understanding, because we need folks to continue the legacy that people have built before us.
Yeah, I mean, it's too late in the game to play dumb anymore. You know what I mean, man? Like, we should be. There's so many resources to get information about, like, just everything, especially like your local. You know what I mean? Like, one of the things, you know, I'm not trying to call anybody out, but there's so many people who don't even know what's in their master labor agreement. You know what I mean? And like, that is like the Bible. That is what you are held to, and that's what the contractor that you work for is held to. And so, like, for you not to know that is just beyond me, like, why you wouldn't, because, you know what I mean? Like, if you know the rules of the game, then you can go play that game as hard as you want to, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So. Yeah, no, it's important to know that information and at least know where to find it, you know, and to know where to ask questions if you don't understand something. Legalese is not the easiest thing. It's not easy for me.
Me either.
But it's important, so that, you know, I actually just moderated a panel at an event for it's a Know Your Rights. It was a Know Your Rights panel, and we had like someone from L&I, someone from the city of Seattle, someone from the laborers, and someone who owns their own company. And we were talking about, you know, it was a information for the audience about knowing your rights. There's several different topics, and then what to do if your rights are violated. And it's so important to know what, you know, that book, our CBA has our rights in it, right? And what's expected of us. And so it's really important to capitalize on your rights, because they belong to you.
Yeah, because so many people have fought, like you said, people have died for us to have these things, right? So kind of getting at that half hour, Minna, so kind of like a couple more questions for you. So I threw at you, you know, what would you tell a kid who wants to get in the union, you know, union trades? What would you tell that person?
Well, I don't sugarcoat things. So, you know, I would talk about all of the good stuff, the wages and the benefits, and, you know, the opportunity that it's given me. One, it's not a dead end. There are so many opportunities to go in so many different directions: safety, project management, superintendent, instructing, owning your own company, working for the building trades. I mean, it just never ends, right? So that, but also, you know, really take a hard look at it. You're going to be outside. You're going to be sore. You're going to be tired. You're going to be working long hours. You're going to have long commutes. You know, I don't like to sugarcoat things, because, you know, you want someone to be here and to succeed. You don't want to sell them a dream, right? But it is, if you can picture yourself doing those things, and that sounds fun to you and it sounds appealing to you, just make sure it's union. That's it. Doesn't matter what it is. Pick something you love, stick with it, and make sure it's union.
And I second that, Minna, because you know, nowadays, you know, just with everything and all the propaganda that you hear, you got people saying that the non-union, there's so many great things about that. But you know, being somebody who's been a part of construction for almost 20 years now, and working in every level, organizing and all that stuff, I can just say that's not true. You know what I mean? In just every category, as far as wages, benefits, and it's not just that. What about the working conditions? You know what I mean? It's just some of the things that I've saw and I've heard and I've seen. Just, it'll blow your mind. But But with that, Minna, so I just, like I said, the last thing is just giving you the floor to kind of just say whatever you want to say.
Well, if I can, I would like to say congratulations to you. Not to put you on the spot or anything, but hey, I don't like the spotlight, so I'm gonna take it off
me
myself.
either. You know what I mean?
Sorry, not sorry. No, I'm super. Thank you so much for having me. Always a pleasure to talk to you, and I'm so excited for you and where you're at. And I just wanted to give you a shout out since I have the floor, because I couldn't imagine a better person to be in that spot. So.
Well, I appreciate.
Not sure if we should elaborate on what I'm talking about, but
I'm not gonna quite get there just yet. But I mean, I think the word's out, and it's not that I'm that I don't want to say it. It's just I haven't even had my first meetings with them yet. So like until I really get a full grasp and understanding, that's when after that it's gonna be letting the world know, because the world's gonna see more of me, and that's a guarantee. You know what I mean? And for all you non-union ironworkers, I'll be seeing you on a job soon. You know what I mean? So that's my job, is to help people like you. That's where I have a passion, advocating for workers who do exactly what I do and don't get the benefits like I do, which doesn't make sense. So we're in 2024, and there are so many people who still have no clue of what they can have, and so. I feel like it's my purpose is to bring more awareness to that. And that is me, a union ironworker, a union tradesperson, whatever trade it may be, you know what I mean? So, that's kind of where I'm at, but I want to say thank you to you, Minna. I know you're busy and you made time for the podcast. And I really do appreciate that. And I hope that we could have you on again, just to kind of, get maybe some more advice, maybe what's happening in Washington State, some of the things that you're working on, because I think people need to know that, and more awareness. The more we know, and the smarter we are. You know what I mean? I'm tired of being. I was always that iron worker that was just, I wanted to play dumb like that. I don't know. But it's too late in the game to do that. You should know everything there is to know about ironwork, and that means political. That means contract. That means union benefits, right? So there's no reason for anybody to keep that away from anybody. You know what I mean? So with that being said, man, that's just the way I feel. You know what I mean?
Agreed.
So,
agreed. Thank you, Paul.
I'm going to get off my soapbox now. You know what I mean? But
never.
But with that, brothers and sisters, I appreciate it. Have a good one and be safe.